So after a disappointing ending to their 2019-20 NBA season in the bubble, the LA Clippers didn't look too eye-popping or like anything special this season, as even though they've been a top 3 seed in the Western Conference for a good chunk of the season, they felt like a very inconsistent team and a team that was just hanging around or going through the motions lately. But all of a sudden, the Clippers look like they have finally started to come into their own as a team, and they look like they might actually be able to win the Western Conference and make a 2021 NBA Finals appearance. What's up guys, SCJ here, and if you enjoyed today's video, then make sure to give it a like as it helps out a lot, and if you're new to the channel and or enjoy the NBA, then make sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell. So last night, the Clippers got a very good win over the recently hot Philadelphia 76ers, in which I talked about in my video from a few days ago. They got a double-digit win as they won by a score of 122 to 112, and one of the things that helped them get that win was something that they've been doing very often lately, which is get very spread out and even scoring from their entire roster. The Clippers had 3 players score over 20 points in last night's game, as well as Reggie Jackson and Marcus Morris, both scoring very well with 12 and 13 points respectively. The Clippers not only ended the 76ers' 4-game winning streak, but they also extended their own winning streak to 5 games after that win. It's not as if they're just playing bad teams during that winning streak, as all of their last 7 games have been against playoff teams, and the Clippers have even won 6 of those last 7 games as they split a 2-game road stint in Dallas with the Mavericks. So that's why I feel that it's been this Clippers team really starting to come into their own and figure out what truly works for them. One of the reasons that they've won their last 5 games and 6 of their last 7 has been the spread out scoring like mentioned earlier. Over the team's last 7 games, they've had 9 players averaging over 7 or more points per game, and 7 of those 9 players averaging double-digit point totals during this stretch. I should also mention Luke Kennard has played very good lately, and he just entered the Clippers franchise record books as he was the first player to put up 20 or more points and multiple threes on 100% shooting in franchise history. Going back to the team overall though, just to prove how well they've been scoring and exactly why that's been working for them, this team has averaged the most points per game in the league during this recent run that they've been on. They've also been efficient and on target while doing that, as they've shot the 3rd best field goal percentage in the process, and they're just 0.4% off of tying the Wizards for the 2nd highest field goal percentage during this recent run. Continuing on with their great shooting as of late, the team has made the 10th most 3-pointers and shot the long ball at the 2nd best clip in the process, as they've shot it at 42.4% and sit right behind the West's 1st seed, the Utah Jazz, who have shot the 3-point shot historically great this season. In terms of their last shooting category, the Clippers have made their opponents pay when they have sent them to the free throw stripe, as the Clippers have made the 5th most free throws and have shot the free throw at the 4th best percentage in the process. When you're drawing the 6th most fouls in the league against your opponents per game, safe to say their free throw shooting and really just their shooting overall has been what's powering this team to the recent run that they've been on. Finishing up with the other traditional stats categories, the Clippers have been very good in the other statistical areas as of late, as they have cleaned up the glass very well, grabbing the 8th most defensive rebounds and the 9th most rebounds overall during this recent run that they've been on. The team's also taken very good care of the basketball and played very efficient as of late, as they have turned the ball over the 2nd lowest number of times over this stretch, and they have been the most efficient team in the entire league over this run as well, with a very good 18.4 plus-minus rating that's leading the entire NBA as of late. When Woj broke the news in the summer of 2019 that Kawhi Leonard and Paul George would be teaming up together as a duo on the LA Clippers, there was an immediate shock from fans around the league, and most people called them the best 2-way pairing in the entire NBA. Now, if you've disagreed with that or changed your opinion on that, you might want to reconsider, as lately, PG-13 and Kawhi have seemed to really take this Clipper team's defense to a whole nother level. Over this recent run for the Clippers, they've had to face some of the top offensive teams in the entire NBA, yet they're only 0.2 points per game off of holding their opponents to the lowest points per game total in the entire league. They've done that by absolutely locking down their opponents and forcing them to shoot poorly, as their opponents have made the 2nd least amount of field goals per game, and their opponents have shot the 4th worst field goal percentage in the entire league as of late. Beyond just their opponents shooting overall from the field, the Clippers' opponents have shot the 4th lowest amount of 3-pointers and shot one of the worst percentages from behind the arc, as their opponents are shooting the 9th lowest percent from 3 as of late. Like how I mentioned the Clippers have been great at dominating down low and cleaning up the glass, well, of course, their opponents have not been. As of late, their opponents have grabbed the 5th lowest amount of offensive rebounds, 5th lowest amount of defensive rebounds, and they're tied for the 3rd lowest amount of rebounds overall. Yeah, that stat seems fitting when Ivica Zubac has dominated for the Clippers down low during this run with a very good 3.8 offensive rebounds and 5.4 defensive rebounds for a 9.2 rebound per game average overall. Plus, the Clippers have 7 guys averaging over 3 rebounds or more during this run, which is very solid and nice to see if you're a Clippers fan or you just want to see the players on this team or the team succeed. With the fact that the Clippers have really locked down their opponents and prevented them from hitting their shots, it's not surprising their opponents have averaged the 2nd least amount of assists over this recent stretch, and they're only half assist away per game from leading the league in that area. So this team's really forcing their opponents to miss whether they take a good shot or a bad shot, honestly. Back to how we said the Clippers have done a great job of protecting the ball though, well, their opponents have averaged the 2nd lowest amount of steals per game and just 0.2 less steals than the Suns' opponents have averaged in that category as of late. Their opponents also can't make them pay down low, as they're averaging the 2nd lowest amount of blocks per game. Wrapping up their opponent's stats, like mentioned before, the Clippers have defended great, and you can see here they're defending great without fouling much, as their opponents are drawing the 7th lowest amount of fouls per game. And just like the fact that the Clippers' own plus-minus rating of 18.4 is leading the NBA as of late, their opponents have a complete opposite negative 18.4 plus-minus rating, which is the absolute lowest in the entire league, and is also way lower than any plus-minus rating that any team has averaged in this league over this season. So that just shows how much their defense is causing trouble for the teams they face, even some of the current top teams in the NBA and playoff teams. Finishing up with the specific defensive numbers, the LA Clippers are either a top 5 or top 10 team in nearly every single category. Over this recent great stretch of games for the Clips, they found themselves at the 6th ranking for the best defensive rating in the entire league. In terms of opponents' points per game off of turnovers, it shouldn't surprise you that their opponents are averaging the 2nd lowest average there, as the Clippers haven't turned the ball over much lately, like mentioned earlier. In terms of opponents' second chance points, when the team, and especially Ivica Zubac, is dominating down low and dominating on the glass, it shouldn't surprise you that their opponents have the 7th lowest average in that category. Like how I mentioned before that the Clippers have done a great job in guarding out on the perimeter, they've also done a great job and really a tremendous job in the transition game, as their opponents are averaging the lowest amount of fast break points and by a very high margin. Then, in terms of points in the paint, they're still very good in that category, but they just miss out on being a top 10 team there, as they sit in the 11th place spot. So even though their offense has been very hot, like mentioned earlier, it seems that their defense that was already great all season is really starting to click even more now, and I don't know if we've even seen the best of the LA Clippers as of yet. The reason I say that is not only has the team had many players miss games this season, but the Clippers just made a move at the NBA trade deadline this past week to bring in veteran guard and leader Rajon Rondo in exchange for 6th man Lou Williams. We saw just how important Rondo was for the other LA team last season, the Lakers, during their playoff run, so I'm very interested to see how he looks as a member of the Clippers and just how he can positively affect this team. I'm sure many people will look at his stats from this season and think maybe he fell off, and while I do understand that, I think you do have to take a closer look and remember that he's only played in 27 games this far this season, started in just 2 of them, and has played an extremely low 14.9 minutes per game. So playing less than 15 minutes per game, which is the lowest minutes per game total in his entire career thus far, will of course bring down your stats. Yet, he still averaged 3.5 assists and 0.7 steals per game. So acquiring one of the best passers of all time might actually be a huge acquisition for this Clippers team going forward, especially in the playoffs. Another thing I think people need to remember is just how important the efficiency from the point guard spot has needed to be from the Clippers in order for them to succeed. Reggie Jackson, who they acquired during the middle of last season, has started in 10 of the Clippers' last 11 games and 24 games for the Clippers overall this season. One of the biggest things with that is the fact that when Reggie Jackson has had a positive plus-minus rating, which of course indicates that he has played efficiently, the Clippers have won, and when he has had a negative plus-minus rating and played inefficient basketball, the Clippers have lost, and that's happened in every single games where he started, aside from just 2 games where Jackson had a negative plus-minus rating against the Heat on February 15th, yet the Heat still won, and when he had a negative rating during this winning streak in their game against the Hawks on March 22nd, yet the team still got the victory. So if Rondo arrives in LA and can play efficient basketball, and Jackson can continue to play efficiently for the Clippers going forward, they will for sure have the ability to make a deep playoff run, and this current stretch of games for the Clippers feels like it's truly them starting to figure things out and come together. And you have to remember that this is their first season with Tyronn Lue as the team's head coach, so change will always take some time to adjust to, especially for these players. The Clippers have a tough stretch of games coming up as they'll face teams such as the Bucks up next, where they can get revenge on the Bucks for beating them last month on national TV, as well as teams like the Nuggets, the 76ers once again, and the extremely hot Phoenix Suns. So this next stretch for the Clippers will truly prove if this team is for real and has what it takes, and it should be very interesting to see if this team is simply just hot right now, or they're really starting to figure it out and they know what works for them going forward and into the playoffs. Anyway though guys, I want to know what you guys have thought about the Clippers' level of play lately, the team's offense or defense lately, or anything that have to do with the Clippers, their players, or coaching staff down below in the comment section. Like mentioned before though, if you like this video, then make sure to give it a like as it helps out a lot, and if you're new to the channel and or enjoy the NBA, then make sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell, that way you stay up to date with my newest content. Anyway though guys, I'm SCJ, and I am out. Peace.